Hello everyone, Giltar here with a model kit review. This time we'll be looking at the 1:100 scale master grade RX-78-2 1-year war version in the video game colors. This is going to be a two-part review where I'll cover the accessories, model kit details, and probably some articulation in part 1, and then in part 2 I'll cover the rest of the articulation and my final thoughts. Now this is a model that is something that is fairly old when you actually look into the history. While this model came out in 2005, I think in March, the actual design of most of the model is based on the version 1.5 master grade RX-78-2, and that model kit actually came out in the year 2000, I think in June. So when you look at the history of this particular model design, it's nearly about 9.5 years old now, which is pretty surprising because it is a pretty fantastic model kit in my opinion. Now I've got the high-grade Universal Century 1:144 scale RX-78-2 model here for two purposes. The first is obviously scale comparison, and secondly just to sort of note the differences in the design, whereas the high-grade version here is essentially anime accurate, whereas this is, for lack of a better term, it's video game accurate. It's based upon the character model of the RX-78-2 Gundam from the PlayStation 2 video game, so it is different. It is similar to the version Cobb in that it has more detail, more mechanical parts, and essentially it's a contemporary reimagining of the RX-78-2 from the original anime. So if we take a look here, obviously they're very similar in design, but it's the surface details like the panel lines and grooves and other points of divergence of design, such as if you take a look at the front chest vents, this one has actual external housings for the chest vents, whereas this only has the panels and you just have a plain sort of blue torso area. So things like that are what separate this video game version to like the more anime accurate, sort of more accurate version of the RX-72 design. Now, before we go any further, I'll mention the instruction booklet, which is great, fully colored, and it's a wonderful thing to even just simply look at. You know, it's really nice. The art is great. The coloring is wonderful. And it's a great set of instructions, very easy to follow. You don't need to know Japanese to understand it. Here's a diagram for all the marking seals and dry transfer decals. Here's an advertisement spread for the video game. And on the back cover we have a color chart for painting the model, and all the different ratios and formulas for the mixes of the paint. Now as far as accessories, as you can see, it comes with a beam rifle, shield, and hyper bazooka. Pretty standard stuff. Two beam sabers as well, housed in the backpack. It also comes with a Gundam hammer, which I have not assembled yet. I've got the spiked head or ball part of it. I've got the handle as well, and also it comes with a chain, a plastic chain that you can hook up. And actually it's packaged in this bag with the foil stickers for the eyes and head cameras, which I painted instead of using the stickers. And here we have a dry transfer decal sheet and a marking seal sticker sheet. Also shown is going to be the beam saber blade effect parts. I didn't take them off the runner yet because I just haven't decided to do so yet, but they're very nice. There's a slight curve to them, so you can pose your Gundam in sort of mid-swing, so they're great for an action pose. Now as far as these accessories, let's go over the Hyper Bazooka first. It just pegs into a port, a square port in the back, and on the side of the Hyper Bazooka is a square peg which is hinged, so that this is sort of storage mode, so you can connect it to the backpack as well, or even you can house it in the shield. There's a square port in the shield here that you can connect the rifle to, or Hyper Bazooka to. And when you want to use it, you just flip it in so it's flush in the body, and so you've got your Hyper Bazooka in sort of battle mode. Very similar, we have the beam rifle, which has the peg and port system. So you have a rectangular port in the handle, a rectangular peg in the palm of the hand, and then it just pegs in. And then as you can see, the Hyper Bazooka has a rectangular port on the handle as well. The beam rifle also has the square peg, which is kind of hard to get out because I have really short fingernails. There it is. So you can also flip that out and again store it on the back skirt, the backpack, or even on, again, inside the shield. The beam rifle here has some very nice sculpted details, a really nice update of the traditional beam rifle design. The sort of side grip has rotational movement. Also the scope can rotate to either side. This yellow part here is actually a separate piece of plastic, so you don't have to paint or use a sticker if you don't want to. The shield here just, again, can peg into the hand, and this part up here, the shield assembly grip, has tiny little nubs which catch on to these grooves in the forearm. You probably can't make that out due to the lighting and my poor camera quality, but it holds on very nicely and is quite secure. And finally, the beam sabers, the hilts, the circular pegs, or ports rather, in the sort of beam emitter part, and then on top here there are circular ports, and in fact they do have articulation, because once you I won't put that back in, but once you have it in, you can actually move it around a bit, so to change the position, so which is really nice. And that's it for the accessories. Now, in terms of articulation, as you can see, the hands do have some articulation in that the thumb is separate, the index finger is separate, but then the middle ring and pinky fingers are a single unit. You can separate them with a hobby knife if you choose, but I personally don't see any point in doing that unless you have some reason to pose these partially curved fingers all by themselves on an individual basis. The feet themselves are really nice. It has articulation so that you can bend it down and bend it up for some really great poses. The ankle armor does have articulation, but if you've got the leg armor on, it's pretty limited. You can't move up that far, but I mean the option is there. You can move the feet down, and then when you do, these front and back pistons will move as well. So that's a really nice touch. You can move the feet side to side a bit, and so not a terrible terribly great range of motion, but it's enough to get some nice wider legged poses with the feet the soles flat on the surface. The knees themselves are double jointed, so it allows a flush bend 180 degrees, which is really great. And in fact, the upper thigh here shows pistons that move when you bend the knees, so that's really great. The skirt armor are all independent pieces, so the front are two separate pieces. If I can get in there. The sides obviously are two separate pieces, and then the back are also two separate pieces. And you can swing the legs all the way forward this far, all the way back. And also the pelvis has the ability to move back and forth. There's a little tab here that you can basically hang on to and just push it forward or back to whatever degree you want, which is really nice. I recommend using that little tab to move it, because if you try manipulating the pelvis with just the legs, you might stress the pegs at the hips. So I definitely don't recommend doing that. The waist itself does have some rotational ability, but just due to how the armor is set up, you can't move it that much, though you can bend it side to side and front and back a slight bit. There's no core fighter, unfortunately. The hands are able to rotate, obviously, and wiggle about. The elbows are double jointed, so it gives you a flush bend, which is really nice. Rotates just below the shoulder. You can move the arm about that much up, but the shoulders themselves do have articulation, so you can move it back and forth slightly, but you can move it up quite significantly up top like that, so that's great. Great range of motion. My particular model is actually quite tight, which I really like. I like tight parts on these, but hopefully they won't wear out too quickly. And then finally, the head is on a ball joint, a single ball joint. So you have rotation and ability to look up and down and move it side to side a bit, but it doesn't have a double ball joint, so you can't get that sort of chicken head motion, which is no great loss. And actually, another point of articulation are these thrusters. They swivel up and down, so that's pretty neat as well. I think that's it for articulation. It's a really limber model at master grade level, and again, because it's based on an original design of the version 1.5 that came out in the year 2000, it's amazing how well this model has held up over the last several years. So that concludes part 1 of the review. I'll be back in part 2 with some more details and my final thoughts. Thanks for watching.